Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Welsh B Show. And joining me today is the co-founder of the mental health support group Dragonchat, Steve Lloyd. Steve, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much, Cal. Cheers for the invite.
Steve, why did you form Dragonchat? How did it come about?
So, 4 years ago now, just over 4 years ago when we set it up, and it was really to support men with suicide, basically. High numbers of men struggle with mental health, which results in a lot of deaths by suicide. So it was something that, I'm really passionate about, and we wanted to introduce into the club to support men, essentially, initially, and then to branch out further, which we have done with introducing a women's group as well, which has been really successful as well. Loads of stigma, as we know, about mental health, and just to kind of, the football club was in a perfect place, really, to support men with mental health, because when you look at the demographic, 18 to 50-year-old, it's the biggest single killer of men, is suicide between those ages. And the demographic of football club supporters is a lot of men between those ages. And often the football club's a real big part of the community and a real big part of people's lives. So it was a way of incorporating football and the football club and sport into supporting people with their mental health.
And what is Wrexham's involvement? Are they in what way do they support you?
So we've got a page on the club's website with the link on it, and a lot of information in there about support, places where people can go to access support. So the helplines and that side of things for when we're not running. And to be fair to Humphrey, he's really kind of keen on Dragonchat. He really likes what we do. And it's really encouraging to see what the club do, and it's great that they've allowed us to keep running and keep going with it, because it really is providing a fantastic platform for people. There's so many success stories and so many people. I know it's helped so much, and I think the club can be really proud of that.
You say you set it up 4 years ago. Did it take a while to sort of catch on? Because it must be difficult to come and speak out.
Yeah, and it was really interesting, because I think we were in COVID times then. It was just before the takeover of Rob and Ryan, when we set it up. Something we were looking to do well before. But anything which I do, I like to set up. I like to do a lot of research and make sure that it's absolutely going to be as good as what it can do. So I did a lot of research, met with a lot of people to make sure that the group was going to be as safe as what it could be for anybody coming along to it. So yeah, that was a big part of it for me. Yeah.
And COVID, that was a difficult time for everyone overall. I think for me, if I'm honest, the first lockdown was quite interesting because it was new. It was kind of something we'd never experienced before, and it was quite fascinating what was happening. And the later lockdowns became difficult when you could not go out, you could not have your haircuts, shops were closed, you were restricted to function, and that became difficult for me. And I'm sure a lot of people would have found it hard. What was going back to COVID? What do you remember about that?
Well, I think in a way that's what really gave me the spur to look into and set up Dragonchat in that respect. I remember going back at the time where the lockdown, there was going to be no football, no supporters going into football grounds, and I knew how much that was going to affect me, and I wasn't going to see, part of our football routine is I meet up with my brother, meet up with my dad, that's a big part of it, and friends who you perhaps don't see all that often through the week, but you see them in the football. And that was being taken away from a lot of people. And it's really, really important, as we know, sport or whatever you're into. For us, it was Wrexham Football Club. For us, it's sport. And I remember myself, commercial manager at the time, Jeff Scott, we kind of, I think the idea was, and the rest of the board, the WST board, we rang all the season ticket holders over 65 to make sure that they were all right and see if there was anything we could help them with at that time. And I think I rang over 100 season ticket holders myself, and I had some of the most wonderful conversations with them, sort of reminiscing about old games and football and that side of things. And I think that's really struck home then just how much people were going to miss football and how isolated people were going to be because of COVID. And I just felt to keep a connection with the football club and keep a connection with other people, an online format of a peer support mental health group would be really, really beneficial for people. And that's kind of where we set up from that. But yeah, COVID was, I think, so difficult for so many people. Again, I will say it was a cohort of people who kind of, I think, loved it. And they didn't have the pressures of attending school or attending work, for example. But by and large, I think it was a very strange time for a lot of people not being able to see people and the isolation which went with that. I think, we're still seeing challenges in and around the world, I think, now with that.
Yeah, people's routines were taken away from them, and then they were lost, weren't they? It's so difficult when your routine is taken away. What you do, it's something really difficult to sort of accept. You're told you just simply can't go to the place you usually go to. Do you think the world has recovered? You mentioned briefly then. Do you think we've recovered? Is the world a different place now?
I think it's shaped quite a lot of people. I think there's a bit less tolerance maybe in the world than what there used to be. I think people express anxiety a bit quicker and a bit sooner now, maybe than what they used to do. There's many factors I know going on around the world at the moment, which could be the case for that. But yeah, by and large, I think people have certainly young people, children, young people who missed quite a bit of education. I certainly think it's definitely shaped them, and I think some of those people are we're seeing knock-ons still from that as well, for definite.
And did you have any understanding or experience with the Wrexham team or teams in general, how they coped with not playing, competing? That must be so difficult for a sports person to not be able to compete. Not doing a job, just competing, because ultimately that's what they do. There's that desire there.
Yeah, and I think for again, for elite sports people, that's what they are, isn't it? As elite sports people, and I think it must have been really, really difficult for those with it. Although in a strange way, I do wonder whether it changed football a little bit. If we're looking at just talking tactics now in football, with no crowds there, teams started playing out a lot more from the back, which seems to have continued now. Whether that's a knock-on from the no crowds and that kind of time where perhaps fans weren't shouting, "Oof it, get it up the pitch," more of a football side of things. But I think, yeah, again, any competitive sports person, it's really important, the psychological side of it. And you wonder what it was like playing for those players without that extra little bit of edge to it, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, because they did obviously they restarted behind closed doors, but there was a period when it just stopped. Yeah, and that must have been that would be difficult to take, I would imagine.
Definitely can, and I think again, when you're looking at the top players, Premier League players, again, it's probably not so bad for them, but those lower league players who used to be I would imagine, year on year getting 12-month contracts, they would have really, really struggled, I would have thought, thinking, I'm out of contract here. If football doesn't start again, what am I doing? My livelihood's gone, my job's gone. And, obviously they've got all the commitments of family life and that side of things. So I would imagine for sort of lower league players and non-league players, it would have been quite a really kind of worrying time for them because of that, not knowing what was going to happen, if they were ever going to what was going to happen with football, were they going to play again?
And do you see enough support for football players? But if we use Wrexham, which you're obviously close to, you'll have an understanding or some link to, but Wrexham or sports people in general, footballers, do they get enough support for their mental health? Is it recognised better now? I
think it's recognised a little bit better now. I think you've had some sports people coming out and saying that they've struggled with mental health and they've had their struggles with mental health through the career. But I think that it's really difficult for professional sports people to kind of tell tell managers, etc., that they're struggling with their mental health because of the such is the nature of professional football. You can't show any weakness. And when I say weakness, is having mental health issues a weakness? I would say it isn't, but it's perceived as that weakness. And again, when you're in professional sport, you can't show that. Is it going to affect your place in the team? Will it affect your contract? Will it affect so many other factors? It's a lot to do, isn't it? And I think that, again, when you watch documentaries about elite sports and sports peoples, and certainly younger players coming through, they're told that you're going to be the best thing, you're going to be the best, you're going to make it, you're going to be a professional footballer, and then when they don't perhaps reach it because there's only a very, very small percentage actually play at that top level, their whole kind of career and everything they've worked towards kind of goes away, and then they're let go by clubs and don't know if there's that much aftercare from professional sports clubs in any short way, shape or form. And I think what would be good to see professional sports teams maybe putting in some support all the way through for these the young professionals who are coming through the ranks, so to help them with their resilience and help them as and when and if it doesn't work out for them. We all hope they go on and do successful and become really good professional footballers, but if they don't, it's that what do they do and what support can they get and provide them to help them to kind of manage that disappointment should that happen for them.
Yeah, and for most sports, it's a very short shelf life, isn't it? Some sports you can play on 40s, 50s, 60s, but your form generally dips then. You're not as good as you used to be, and you're struggling to recapture maybe your previous form. That's pressure. That adds to your anxiety, your doubt, your worries, your stress levels. But in terms of major sports stars who maybe financially secure but have stopped competing, there's a void. There's a void there, and not all of them can go on to do work in the media and such. So it's important that they kept active in some way. The money, is not really enough. It's having that purpose.
Yeah, and purpose is the big thing, and you've absolutely hit the nail on the head with purpose. And I think you see when you hear a lot of professional footballers talk, the biggest thing they miss is the going into it's the routine, it's the going into training every day, it's the being with their colleagues, the managers, the staff, being part of that, what it is to be part of a group and a crowd and a team. And when they lose that, they lose a huge thing, and whilst and again with mental health, there's no discrimination with it. It doesn't matter whether you're an ex-professional footballer with tens of £1 million in the bank. It can still get to you. You can still struggle with that, especially when those really important things to you have been kind of pulled away, not through your fault, just because you've got older. And that's it's a hard kind of transition, I think, for some players to manage.
And do you think sports fans have a role to play in how they treat players, how they react to disappointing results and situations?
It's a real interesting one, isn't it? Because I think football's such a passionate game. And when we you go to the match, you shout, you cheer, and what we again as supporters, we see what happens on the pitch. The 11 players, and some players will make a bad pass, or some players will have a bad week, or whatever. But what we don't know is what's going on in the background. Is there something going on with the family? Are they just having a struggle? Are they just struggling just for form or whatever? And I think football fans, we don't know the ins and outs. We don't see the training sessions. We don't see that side of the football. We just see what happens on the pitch over those 90 minutes. And I think we can get critical at times, can't we, as supporters, and kind of shout and say, well, they're not good enough and they're not good enough. And again, it's such a polarization of views, I think, these days in football. Like, so, 1 week, if you score a couple of goals, you're the greatest player on earth. The next week, when you miss a penalty and you lose, you're we're no good. And I think we've seen a little bit of that with Wrexham. We go in up one week and then we'll lose a game, and it's like, good job we've got as many points on the board as what we got. Otherwise, we'd be struggling for relegation. So, it's kind of this. It's a bit all or nothing, isn't it, in sports these days? And again, I think social media plays a bit of a role in that as well, because you can't have a moderate view these days on social media. I don't think you've either got to be. The only way you get heard is if you've with real extreme views, whether it's good or bad. That they're the ones who seem to get heard these days.
But it's so easy now, isn't it? There's multiple forms of social media. You can just react quickly, and sometimes without thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. How many times do we see that? Where straight away, there's a defeat gone on, people have gone on, and it all comes out. The frustration all comes out, and again, the way in which the world kind of runs at the moment. You've got arguably one of the most powerful men in the world, in the American president, who seems to announce everything through social media. There's no kind of press conferences really that these days. It's all done over the social media. So it's kind of become a norm, and that's how things are, and that's how things work. So
it's a much smaller world, isn't it? So we can experience things that we wouldn't have seen decades ago, which shape our own sort of attitudes and our own sort of emotions.
Yeah, and I think and with Wrexham, I mean, it's such a strange sort of thing with everything that's happened since the takeover. We've got so many new supporters who may be even new to the game of football in many respects as well. So you've kind of it's kind of really interesting to kind of look at that sort of dynamic as well, and see how that kind of plays out. And again, we know 46 games in a season is a long season, and whilst on paper it may look as though we should be beating this team or that team, it doesn't quite. It never kind of translates to that. It's never as simple as that. It's not played on paper. There's so many variables within the game these days, and that's going to be difficult for Wrexham next season, in that respect, because we were able to get the little 0.5% by perhaps, going on an aeroplane somewhere, or, our sports science department was fantastic, but going into a championship season, every team's got fantastic sports scientists. Virtually every team, I'd imagine, will fly by aeroplane. So those small margin, those small 0.5%, we're going to have to find them elsewhere for us to win games next season, which never easy.
Yeah, and going back to the fans' reaction, I'm seeing it now with this pre-season tour, 2 defeats. You're seeing certainly on Facebook and X or Twitter, people are reacting so emotional and in negative reactions to a defeat. When the other week it was positive, when it's a good 3-0 win, everything's brilliant. We're looking brilliant. Everything's on fire. A setback, a defeat, and it's the opposite. You're picking faults. You're finding faults.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and I think pre-season games are just that. Really, they are pre-season games, and for us, it's getting minutes under the belt, and it's difficult sometimes going to places, certainly like America, for example, or Australia. The Australian teams are halfway through their season as it currently stands, so their players are fully fit, fully, match sharp and focused on matches. Whereas for us, for Wrexham, we're very much kind of just starting to get things rolling again, just starting to do. Again, it's a big tour for the club financially, as much as anything, and it's been nice. It's good to build the brand out, which is what the owners are looking to do, which I absolutely get. But when you look at the historics, from America, when you see Premier League teams go in and playing MLS teams, they struggle to beat them with that. And again, with pre-season, okay, we've lost to Wellington today. Was it Wellington or Auckland? Who did we play? Wellington. Yeah. Sorry, I thought it was. When you can't, I can't remember. They blurred in, but with Wellington, who we played, today, just over 12 months ago, if I remember rightly, we drew in a pre-season friendly to Chelsea, 2-2, after drawing with Bournemouth 1-1, and what did Chelsea do last week or the week before? Was it last week? They beat Paris Saint-Germain 3-0 to win the World Club Championship. So yeah, it's just, again, for me, it's pre-season and it's about fitness and getting the players together and bonding. I guess Phil Parkinson would have liked to have signed a few more players to help those players out there to gel, but again, it's a long way to travel. Hopefully we can get some energy back in the players' legs, ready for coming back, and hopefully we got another 1 or 2 pre-season friendlies lined up somewhere.
I think
be lovely to see one.
They'll squeeze one in, I think, last minute like they did last year. But yeah, this morning, they deserve something. They were by far the better team and created lots of chances. They could have just finished better.
Yeah,
produced a couple of saves, and I think Lee hit the bar on the post.
It's fine lines, I think, Cal, isn't it, as well with football? And I think that for me, if you're not creating chances and you're not getting into the opportunities, that's when you worry a little bit more. But I think, even in the last 10 to 15 minutes, I don't know how many times Ryan Barnett got round the back and the execution of the cross wasn't great. And when he did get the cross, they had defenders in the box. But, chances are if you allow Barnett to cross the ball 4 or 5 times in that positions, when we're fully match sharp, fully match fit, we're going to get a goal or 2, aren't we? Because that's, you look at the stats from last season and you look at how successful we've been with that, I think it's not really too much of a problem in some respects. But again, if you just look at the results in isolation, you'll say not great. But you look at the game over the whole, it's probably, Parkinson will be probably unhappy that we haven't got a goal or 2 from being in good positions.
And in terms of the players' sort of mental focus, is it good to get away from your environment? Are you a supporter of traveling such a long way in terms of changing your environment? I know the commercial aspects, playing in front of a new audience, new fans, because the club's obviously growing. Is it good to get away though, or would it be better playing where they normally play in their usual environment?
I think for me, it's good for the team to bond. Although again, with this, the squad I think was already at that stage, and I think that's the thing you have to say about Phil Parkinson's sides. They are such a strong squad, a together squad. He creates that, and I think that the tour will have done wonders again for that side of things. So which will bode well for us when we're going into the season. You've got 11 lads who go out onto the pitch, plus all the rest of the substitutes. They're one big unit, and they're looking to push together. And that can be important. And again, it's interesting. I think as we've gone up the leagues into the Championship, I think what the players will be doing and how we prepared last season and the season before, sort of flying to away games as a League 2 team or a non-league team, probably unheard of. Going away for 2 and 3 days before games, probably unheard of for players at that level. Now with players in the Championship, I think that's probably the norm for them. So I don't think what they'll experience will be anything out of the ordinary for them. They'll be used to that sort of thing.
And going back to Dragonchat, how many people use the platform, the service? How many regular people are involved and come to you and to join?
Yeah, in the for the men's group, there's probably around a dozen people come to the groups online. But again, I think over the 4 years, there's probably been about 300, 400, 500 different people who've come along at various points, dip in and out, such as the group, because every group's an individual group. We discuss all of what we need to discuss. So it's kind of, you don't have to go every week to kind of still be part of it. And I think the ladies group, they must be hitting 8 to 10 as well, which is really good as well. And I think they've got a lot of good regulars there who come there. And massive shout out to Leighton and Vicky, who kind of facilitate the men's group, and to Nicola, Mia and Lowry, who do the women's group. They do an absolutely fantastic job, wonderful volunteers, giving up their own time to kind of run those groups for people. And I know how much the people who go and attend the groups get from it, which is great, and it's just great to have that connection with other Wrexham fans. And again, we get people from all across the globe as well. You know, it's not just local, it's all across the globe. And you know, I'd love to run groups exclusively in Wrexham in a way, but I don't want anybody not. We need everybody to come along, because it doesn't matter where you live in the world, you can still struggle with a better mental health, can't you? As well.
Because I know you do have a base at the Miners Project, yes. Would you like a permanent base? Would you like to do this full time if you could, and get the financing, the funding to have it going daily?
I think it would be lovely. I've got loads of ideas where I'd love to grow Dragonchat and start getting into schools as well with young people as regarding it. I think that would be the another big step for it. But I think it's the again, club have got its own priorities, and kind of we work along with that. But we're really grateful to the Miners who are fantastic towards Dragonchat. We've got our own kind of room within there which we can go. We can have we have had what we call blended sessions there, where we meet in person if people want to meet in person. But we're also online in there because we've got television and internet, so it kind of do dual. But certainly before the games, we do pre-match meetups from around about 1 o'clock onwards up until 2:30 before every game on a Saturday, around about 6, 6:15 on a midweek game, where anybody can come along, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, sit down and have a chat. And I think where the Miners is really good as well, if we're looking at mental health, there's a big crossover between substance misuse and alcohol as well, and mental health. And I think with the Miners not it being a dry as such, doesn't sell any alcohol, it doesn't kind of discount anybody from going, and it doesn't make it difficult for anyone to attend should they have had problems with kind of alcohol in the past. So it's kind of something else that I like to go into the small details, and the small details are really, really important to me, because we have to make it inclusive for absolutely everybody. So that's why kind of the Miners is such a great base, and they're just so wonderful people in there. Can't speak highly enough of them.
And is it both groups? Was it once a week? Is it both groups?
Yeah, once a week. Thursday evenings for the men, 7 o'clock start. Now that goes on till 9 o'clock. And the women's group's on a Monday evening, and that's from 8 till 9:30. We initially set it up for an hour and a half, just like a football game. And the first 45 minutes of that is kind of talking about our mental health, where everybody kind of introduces themselves. We give everybody a safe place to talk about whatever they need to talk about, whatever's going on for them in their kind of lives. We look to have some sort of like positive kind of spin on it as well. What are you going to do in the next sort of week, or to kind of help somebody, or to look after yourself, or that side of things as well. And then the last 45 minutes we talk about football, and whatever's happening in the season. If we've got FA Cups, I love reminiscing, getting people to talk about their favourite Wrexham games or their favourite cup tie, because that's really, really important for us to kind of remember those good memories. And again, we structure it like that because obviously I'm really, really acutely aware that if we're allowing people a place to kind of open up, then we have to make sure that they leave the group in as good a place or a better place than when they come along. So that's where that football chat becomes so important, because if we've allowed a safe place for people to open up, we need to make sure that they leave in a safe place as well. And often it can be difficult when you spoke about difficult issues. But that's where that football chat comes in, because it's back to having a laugh and a joke, and you're kind of reminiscing and talking about old stories. So that's kind of doing, if you like, that repair work back again. So yeah.
So was really the main objective was to give someone who maybe was struggling somewhere to just go and just be part of something to begin with. But then if they want to open up and go further and express themselves and explain what's going on, you're happy to deal with that.
Absolutely. There's this kind of, again, anybody can join a meeting. They don't have to. You don't have to speak. You don't have to put your camera on. We do obviously for the women's group, for the safety aspect. We ask people to turn the cameras on initially, but again, if they want to turn the cameras off after, that's perfectly fine. But it's just to provide that safe place. And as I said, through those COVID years, those where people weren't going to football, it was just to keep football fans, giving fans a place to connect with each other. And again, some of the success stories that Dragonchat has brought people together, and friendships have been formed, which is fantastic. But also people have kind of really, I think it's really helped them. They've put a lot of hard work in to get to where they are now, but they have, they've done fantastically well. And Dragonchat was a small part, played a small part in I think giving them the confidence and giving them a sense of belonging and giving them a sense of kind of, I can do this. I want to go and watch, and I want to go and watch Wrexham and meet him and all that kind of side of things as well. It's really, really important.
I'm sure you must hear sort of people must say things that are quite serious that maybe you cannot deal with. You maybe advise them to go elsewhere and give them direction of, you need to speak to this person, you need to go to this organization. Do you contact them yourself? Do you get involved on that level where you feel, hang on, this is serious, it's beyond what we're capable of, we must take this further?
Yeah, I mean, before I was starting it as well, I did a lot of research and a lot of networking. Obviously, with my role as a mental health nurse anyway, I've got kind of quite good links within people, and I know we'd worked quite. We'd linked in previously with Call Helpline, whether you've heard of Call Helpline, which is the community advice listening line, which is based on Grove Road, actually, in Wrexham, and they offer a 24-hour, 365-day a year, 52 weeks a year service where anybody who's struggling with their mental health can just ring up and talk to them. So I had meetings with those and discussed with those that we were looking to set this group up, and if anybody's coming on and they're really struggling, is it okay if we put them to you? Obviously, it was no problem for us to do that, but again, out of courtesy, it was just in case we did have a few people come in we could signpost them that they knew there may be more people coming from that. But yeah, that's the kind of the sort of signposting and advice. And again, there's other groups out there these days who are doing some fantastic work around the area with supporting people for the mental health as well, which is kind of good for people to kind of get involved in if they want to do that sort of walk and talk sessions and that side of things.
And how long have you done this for as a job?
Oh, I have been qualified now for 11 years. But again, I've worked within, I started working substance misuse service 15 years ago. So probably about 15, 16 years now I've been working within sort of the mental health field. Last 10 years of it, obviously, as a CAMHS nurse, child and adolescent mental health service nurse. So I currently work with what they call the GP and Reach service, one of the senior practitioners within that. So we run out of GP practices and run sessions with children and young people, which is very much about early intervention, prevention, signposting, and getting the right help at the right time, plus also giving them some kind of a bit of we can run some sessions with young people who are struggling a little bit, just to kind of give them a better understanding of what mental health is and how they can look after themselves mentally, because again, it's a big thing. We talk about mental health and physical health, and they're very, very linked. We look after our physical health by sleeping well and eating well and taking exercise, and those sort of things are really good for our mental health as well as watching Wrexham.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't even make this about me. I've had issues with substance misuse and certainly anxiety I suffer from. I'm a massive overthinker. I always fear the worst, and the world's going to enter it. Yeah, it's always the worst outcome for me, which you find out in the end it's not. And you try and tell yourself, don't worry, don't overthink it, don't panic. You're panicking about something that's not going to happen. But I've always had a way of really, really, really panicking about the worst case scenario. How do you manage to convince people that drugs and drink is not the answer?
Well, I think it's really interesting, really. I think it may sound controversial when I say this, but at the time when people are taking the alcohol or drugs, that's the thing that's keeping them going. That's the thing that's
Yeah.
keeping them kind of, alive, if you like. So, for whatever reason, that's playing a role for them at that time. In an ideal world, the issue you've got when you're using that is that the implications of health implications and obviously law when you're talking with drugs. So yeah, it's when people kind of, if they identify that they need support, that's when we can kind of come in, and it's kind of then you know looking to get alternative strategies to cope with the stresses which they're feeling, which are perhaps better, would be seen as better for them than going down the route of alcohol or drugs. And again, you look at them in moderation. There's no real issues with it, is there? In moderation, some people can do that, some people can't. But for a group of people, it can be really, really difficult, detrimental to them. It can be really kind of destructive to them, depending on what sort of personality they are. So yeah, it's really difficult, but it's again trying to find something to replace those things that they're using, if that makes sense, which
Yeah.
maybe would seem more positive for them when they're ready to make that change.
I think from my experience, it's sometimes it's been a case of getting through the days and just getting to a certain point. But that probably means if you're struggling with a problem and you just want to try and forget about it, it doesn't go away. That's the worst thing. That problem never goes away, even though you feel better for a day, 2, 3 days. It's getting worse in those 2, 3 days. And I
Yeah,
find for me as well, more time. If I'm kept busy, I'm fine. When you've got more time on your hands, I think it's
yeah,
so
it's
filling that time.
yeah, and I think that's where you kind of again, for me, it's all about getting to know yourself as a
Yeah,
person,
yeah,
also being kind to yourself and giving yourself a break. If that day where you kind of, some people, when you're really, really struggling, you lie in bed. I've been there myself at times. I just lay in bed all day, and that frustrated the hell out of me. Why am I lying in bed all day? I'm just not doing anything. But you know what? I've come to realize now that that's what I needed at that time, and that was okay because that was the best I could be on that day. And and next day I got up and I might have just had a shower, for example, but that was enough because that was all I could manage on that next day, and that's perfectly fine. And it's sort of, you know, I think we build expectations on ourselves and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as well to be, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, we should be, those are the pressures which we put on ourselves, and when we don't reach them, we kind of really kind of beat ourselves up about it. And I think sometimes it's nice to take that step back, be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, accept that this is where I am today, and that's perfectly okay. Tomorrow's another day. But again, it's kind of going back to the basics. What things do you do which you enjoy doing? What things do you do that are really, really helpful for you mentally? And then you do more of them, then hopefully things can, will turn around for you. It's difficult when life these days can be really challenging. There's a lot of external pressures on, whether it work or money or such like these days, those kind of social things, relationships. All of it's really difficult. All of that can be a minefield to kind of navigate as well. But again, it's you've got to kind of, within that, kind of communication is the big key. Being able to kind of communicate to the person who you're closest with that you are struggling or something's happening. It makes things a lot easier.
Is medication the answer? Would you say that's useful
I
in certain ways, or is it
I,
overused?
I think that medication's got a role for certain people at certain times. I think maybe going back quite a few years ago, it was the go-to. I still think to a point it is, certainly with adult services. And I think, again, you've probably got generations now who, they think that a tablet's going to make things that much better. Whilst there's definitely a role for medication for some people without any shadow of a doubt. If the problems are still, if a lot of the problems are social, which are causing you all a lot of anxieties and stresses, taking an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety pill, for example, isn't going to change what's going on those external things. So that kind of is where you kind of need the support to sort those things out as well. But again, learning about yourself and that is kind of really important for me. Knowing you, knowing how you tick, knowing what makes it good for you, that's perfect. But again, like I say, there is a role for medication for some people without any shadow of a doubt. Really, really important role for some.
Would you say if people are self-medicating with drink or drugs, that's their solution, and it's having some form of impact? Because I think it does initially. You do tend to feel, like, as I mentioned, it doesn't last forever. It makes the problem worse overall. But that quick fix, if people are doing that, they want that quick fix every day. Can medication replicate that in some way? Then you have the other treatments alongside it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time what happens with medication, when you start taking medication, it can kind of provide a window of opportunity for you to kind of put some change into place, which is kind of really, really important. But if nothing really changes when you're in that kind of place, then it'll probably stay the same. And no amount of antidepressants is going to kind of assist if it's an external kind of stuff that's going on, if that makes a bit of sense with what I'm saying. But it can provide a little
issue that needs to be
absolutely with. Yeah, on a lower level kind of. I mean, when we're talking about mental illness, your top end, your schizophrenia and that side of things, definitely it's medication. Although even there, it's really good to have good habits and good routines, and that side of things can be really, really helpful for people in that, because that lessens your anxieties and lessens your stresses and brings the stress levels and your anxiety levels down. You're able to kind of cope better with life, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Those are serious issues, and they're serious illnesses, very at the extreme end. How are you?
Yeah.
How are they dealt with, by the way? Are you seeing a different approach to how they're treated, how they're recognised?
I think there's always a stigma around mental health, without any shadow of a doubt. I think that stigma is still there now. I mean, obviously, I work with children and young people, and I think, I do see some, children who are frightened when they're coming in to see me, because they think that this must be something mentally ill with them, and they're going to get sent to hospital and they're going to be locked up, and they've seen sort of films or they've heard kind of stories. We don't do that, basically. We do everything we can to keep people away from kind of inpatient units, because they're not the best of environments, I don't think, for people. Some people really need it, and the ones that need it, it'll be really, really beneficial for them, but again, it's trying to get people to understand how they are, how things are affecting them, and what they can do to affect positive change for themselves.
And are children being diagnosed better now? Is there a better understanding of maybe why somebody is not performing in a certain way, behaving in a certain way, reacting in a certain way, living in a certain way? Do you think it's been identified now much sooner?
It feels as though it is. It's getting recognised now, certainly, I think, in schools a lot more. It's just unfortunate these days that sometimes it can be difficult with, the getting extra support within schools can be difficult, because a lot of the schools' budgets have been really, really cut. And often, a lot of the pastoral support is cut initially from schools, because they need to keep teachers involved and more teachers in schools. So I think that can be a bit of a challenge. But I do think schools are a lot more aware of mental health now, and kind of, again, there's a new kind of, the Welsh Government have brought in a new kind of approach within schools to support healthy schools, to support children and young people with their mental health, where mental health now is given same kind of it's on parity now with academic achievement, which is really kind of quite brilliant to kind of hear from my side of things as well. But again, it's like everything else, unfortunately. Welsh Government bring things in, and then they don't perhaps get the funding from Westminster that's required to kind of make the real good positive changes. So I think because there's mental health nurse attached to every school in the country, within Wales now. But again, it's kind of a lot of the funding and that's been pulled on other side of things. So the schools have got the challenges on that side of it as well. But yeah,
there seems to be lots of support in Wrexham, for example. I mean, the kites, for example. But do you think is the demand overpowering the support? Can the support deal with the demand and the amount of people who want to use the services?
Yeah, I think for simple answer, yes. I think that what we're seeing because of perhaps fundings and have been kind of reduced. There are less third sector agencies perhaps out there now. There's some really good third sector agencies, but I think that it's unfortunate for them because their funding comes and then their funding goes. So I think they set up some really good projects, and there has been some really good projects going on in and around the area, but they don't, because of the funding aspect. The funding's perhaps not there for next year, so those sort of get lost. And while someone else may pick that up, then it's kind of the continuity's perhaps not there as much as what would benefit. But yeah, it's there are some good agencies in Wrexham. There are some amazing things which again people within Wrexham can access for support. Silver Cloud is one, whether I don't know whether you've heard that, or if anybody's heard of Silver Cloud, but Silver Cloud is an online kind of cognitive behavioural therapy, 12 sessions of cognitive behavioural therapy, which you do online at home at your leisure on a whole range of things, sort of for whatever you want, and all you need is a GP in Wrexham, and you can sign up. You find details on the website, and the NHS website is regarding that. Absolutely fantastic service for people. But again, what we do know is online learning is not for everybody. Some people need to see more people in person, and I think that's where the waiting lists and frustrations can come, is that perhaps we're not there. But that's the beauty of the job I do, certainly for children and young people, is that within GP practices now, and we tend to be able to see people within a week or so of coming through to the GP. So that's a really kind of, it's wonderful that we can see people so early.
But do you think this technology needs to be used more efficiently? And is this the way forward, rather than phoning up for an appointment? Now, sometimes you have to go face to face and be seen physically, but in terms of just like diagnosing people, speaking to people, getting support, getting advice, should we be doing more stuff like we're doing now, online talking, the stuff that you do through Dragonchat? Is that the way forward?
I think there's definitely a role for peer support. I think peer support is huge. I mean, there's been some really good research on the positives of peer support and how it can support people. And I think this is where I think from the Dragonchat thing, we're kind of, you've got Andy's Man Club as well in Wrexham. Big shout out to Andy's Man Club.
I'm aware of them.
They do fantastic work, and again, Richie Harris with his walk and talk sessions, mindfulness project. Big heads, heads up for Richie as well for the work he's doing. It's incredible stuff. But yeah, it's with Wrexham Football Club one in particular, with the Dragonchat, the fact that everyone's coming along to the group who likes Wrexham Football Club, we've already got that really big connection. So it's kind of when we go into the talk, we've got the positive talk about Wrexham, and what what I make sure we do, and what we always do within that, is make sure that the talk is kind of quite light as well. We don't go into whilst the tactics and all the rest of it, we won't kind of go into the slagging off the players and slagging off the managers and slagging off the team and everything else. Not that we've had much of that to do over the last 4 years, to be fair, because we keep winning games. But it'll be interesting, when we lose a few, the difference that's going to be, isn't it? We will see.
Well, every time we have a bad run recently, it's usually about January, February, where we've had a bad run. People just completely go off the rails, don't they? I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's
I think,
like you say, everything's okay.
Yeah, I think our managers, and I think this is where our manager's so good. I think come January, February, what you tend to find, he mixes his teams up, mixes his players up, gets them fit and ready and firing for that for kind of back end of February, March, and we've kind of kicked on in that time and produced some magnificent results to kind of get us, over the line. So I think, we've got to trust the process, but it's not easy as a fan, is it? Trusting that process.
No, because you live in obviously the real moment, don't you? And you don't like losing. You don't like slipping down a place. You don't like, obviously dropping points. But you think, like last year, nothing to worry about in the end.
Easy, wasn't
it? Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Bit at one point, but yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I think last year there was a point there where we had a run of games which was absolutely horrendous. And you looked on paper at Wycombe's games, who were, at the time, who we thought would be our closest rivals. And they were like, if we're anywhere near them, if we can be within 4 or 5 points of them after this run of 6 or 8 games, because I think we had like Birmingham at home, we probably had to go to Wycombe as well. We were away at Huddersfield. It was in that sort of run, and they were playing sort of Shrewsbury at home and Northampton, etc. And as it turned out, we were ahead of them, weren't we? After we beat them down at Wycombe, which I always felt then, looking at those last fixtures for us, I fancied our chances of going up, certainly getting enough points over Wycombe. But again, Stockport did their best, and as did Charlton. They both of them kept pushing. It's really strange because that last weekend, I think Leyton Orient, wasn't it, as well? If I remember, Leyton Orient played. Who did Leyton Orient play? They played Wycombe, didn't they? And then we played.
Charlton.
And we played Charlton. And on, before them games, if Leyton Orient would have beaten Wycombe and then Charlton would have beaten us,
they could have gone up, and they were close at points.
It could have been, if Charlton had beat us, then you'd have gone into that last game of the season with Charlton, Wycombe, ourselves, and Stockport all being able to kind of go up. Obviously, we won that game, and the rest is history as such, isn't it? But yeah.
Before you go, I will talk about the takeover and obviously what's happened in the last few years and before then. Just going back to the mental health issues, do you think people misuse it as an excuse? Do people need to take responsibility for themselves? I think in some ways I do for some of my issues. I think some I can't help, but I've recognized how I can manage them better and what I do wrong. Do you think people do need to perhaps take more responsibility? And is it overused sometimes, mental health, as an excuse?
I think it's an interesting one. I think if that can feed into the stigma around kind of mental health, and because it's sort of, because we're all individuals, we're all different, and we'll all experience things slightly differently as well. So for what can be a really, really difficult period in time for one person, it may seem insignificant what another person's experiencing, but again, they're still experiencing that at that time. That may be a bit of a wishy-washy answer in a way, Cal. I appreciate that. But again, I think where the taking the responsibility kind of comes in is that, again, it's learning about yourself, learning about what makes you tick, and doing more of the positive things that you've got that you can do to look after yourself. It's going back to basics, eating properly, trying to sleep properly, kind of looking after yourself, listening to, whatever you're into, listening to music, listening to the, one thing I've said, we've done in Dragonchat before, is like, you're looking at a positive thing. I'll say to you, what YouTube video is your go-to YouTube video for watching Wrexham? And then you'll go down that rabbit hole for an hour and a half, and the next thing you've watched highlights of the Birmingham game in the FA Cup, the West Ham game, then the Dover 6-5 comes up, and then the Barnet 5, and then the 3-1 Boreham Wood, and before you know it, an hour's gone, and you're kind of beaming, ear to ear, because you've kind of, you've distracted yourself and you've stopped yourself going down that kind of spiral, which is easy done when you're an overthinker.
Yeah. But I think as you get older, you do tend to recognize repeat actions, and every action has a reaction. And if you tend to understand, well, if you carry on doing this will be the result. Certainly from my perspective, you tend to realize, hang on, if you do this way, the outcome will be better. You do it this way. If you react this way, you're going to have a negative outcome or a positive. So eventually you do tend to understand how you function and how you react to things and what the consequences of your reactions are, and try and deal with it better.
Yeah, and that's learning, isn't it? You're learning about yourself all the time, and hopefully, I think initially when you have that really kind of difficult period of in your life of mental health, I think the next time when you experience similar, the automatic thought is that, oh no, I'm going to go back to where I was before, and I really don't want to go back to there because it wasn't a very nice place. But I think the fact that you've recognised that, then you probably start putting things into place to stop that, and that's to kind of help yourself to feel a little bit better about yourself, and to to kind of do those little things to help. So I think every day's a learning day, isn't it? And the more you experience it, we'd rather not experience it, but the more you do, I think the more you learn about yourself, and the more you can kind of stop it, deflect it, divert it, and kind of put plans into place which are going to help you to not go down that spiral, which is so easy to do.
So how do Wrexham fans cope with the Championship next year? What should their mindset be? Enjoy it. Don't get too upset. Just enjoy what's happening and just go with it. Because I think, like I said, it's every day is a cup final. Just enjoy this amazing story, and to be in the Championship, playing these massive clubs, very difficult games. Just enjoy every moment of it.
And I think that's all we can do is, as supporters, we get to the ground, cheer them on, get behind them. The 11 lads who go out on the pitch each game, they're the ones, they're giving everything that they can for Wrexham. We got to try and give everything we can for them. There's going to be, I don't doubt this season's going to be some really testing moments for us as a team. We're going to get, results are going to go against us without any shadow of a doubt, because they do in football in general. And I think, as supporters, what we've got to try to do is not get too carried away with results. If we get beat 4-0 by somebody, then so be it. Next week's another game where you start 0-0. And that's kind of the nature of football, isn't it? But yeah, you could sense nervousness at times in the crowd last season when things were, the back-to-back, I think, home defeats, wasn't it, to Leyton Orient and Stevenage. You almost felt a little bit that fans were really starting to worry. They're really starting to kind of, panic a little bit. And that's where we've got to be really kind of staying with this team, and we've got to back that team as much as we can, because they're the 11 who are going to do the job for us as supporters. We can do our little bit.
Well, that goes back to expectations, I think, as well. It goes back to expectations, because we were so close to being promoted. We were in the promotion hunt. I think we're going to throw this away. Worst case scenario, we don't get promoted, we stay in League One. But yeah, that's brilliant compared to where we've been. We'll take that, but you're so close to something better. The goals are changing. The ambition is changing. So you want more, don't you? When you want more, you're sort of setting yourself up for stress.
Absolutely. And I think this season's really difficult, because I think, we're still it's funny saying this now as a Wrexham fan, but we've become quite a big fish, haven't we, really, in a way. But whereas, when we were in non-league, League Two, even League One to a point, we were a big fish in relatively tiny pond with the National League, and the ponds have got bigger. But all of a sudden, we're a big fish in a great big huge ocean that is the Championship. And when you look at trying to sign players, and I think I think we've probably got to be patient to see which players are going to come in, because you know, when you get to players in championship level, they're fantastic footballers. They may not necessarily be overly interested in that Wrexham project, the Ryan and Robin Ryan kind of project. They may not be necessarily interested in that, you know. And again, if you've got a chance as a professional footballer to play, if West Brom want you or Wrexham want you, you know, do you play at the Hawthorns in front of 25,000 every week, or do you come to Wrexham, which you would if you come to the you know, with Wrexham just coming up to the championship, do you go to an established championship club, or do you go to a club which, you know, only just got up, just got into the division? They've not been in there for, was it 40 years now, isn't it? You know, since we were last in there, who were just, you know, finding their feet, you know, and a lot of these players in that championship level, they've probably got ambitions of going higher, especially if they're younger players who we're after. So that next move for them is really vital if they want to kick on their careers to get up to play, you know, Premier League. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but I think patience is the key.
But I think there is an attractiveness to Wrexham now. Obviously, it's a club on the up. It's a club which doesn't have financial resources. Obviously, you're going to be part of you get the exposure. There is that Hollywood interest. I hate saying the Hollywood factor, but there is obviously a Hollywood connection, a showbiz connection, which some people will be attracted to. So I think there is a package there that is attractive.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you will see players coming in. And I think, you know, I think we'll probably be a very different team that plays the first game at Southampton than the one we've seen play in Wellington this morning. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this, you know.
Well, you're making some changing the team after an hour or so, weren't you? Really, you're completely changing it round after 60 minutes. So giving everyone a run out, you lose the consistency then, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And I think that you know, we'll see players coming in who are going to be starting 11 players. I think little doubt about that. I think, you know, we need a little bit extra quality in that side for me. And I think, you know, we started by the looks of it with the Italian lad or the New Zealander, the Kiwi we signed, who looks a, you know, really, really good signing as well, and at a really good age as well. So yeah, I think that, you know,
an international player from a country which we've got a good fan base down, obviously, because we're at that side of the world at the moment. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, the UK, New Zealand has a strong connection anyway. So yeah, that's a good move. They always needed a Canadian, I think, or an American, Australian. So I think this is a good move.
Yeah, I think it's a really good move, and he looks a really, really good player as well.
Obviously, that's what counts in it, really. It's the player's quality and ability that counts. But in terms of commercially, I'm surprised they didn't get an American earlier or something like that. I've gone in for someone to just ramp up the exposure over that side of the world.
It is, and I think it's so difficult now. I think, you know, when you're bringing in players, because they've got to be of a certain standard, they've got to be of an international standard and quality. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but there's a lot of, you know, I think they have to have to be granted a work permit and a work visa in the UK now since we left with Brexit. They've got to prove this. They've got to, you know, meet so many criteria, and they have to hit certain amounts of points, don't they? I think it's about 25 points they have to get to be able to get that contract. Otherwise, you can still sign them, but you're only allowed to have 4 It's a minefield, I think, but we've got the right people in charge. I'm sure at the club we kind of work all that kind of stuff out, and know, you know, the players to go for and on the international stages.
But what was your initial reaction to this takeover, the interest, when it started to become announced that Ryan Reynolds, Hollywood actors were involved, were interested in buying the club? What was your initial reaction?
It was really interesting, Cal, because obviously I was on the WST board throughout the time of the takeover, meetings every week, and obviously, you know, I found out, or the board had found out, probably a couple of weeks before the general fans that who the prospective new owners were going to be. Kind of shut your head in a bit of disbelief, really, thinking, seriously, this is unbelievable. You know, and again, you know, I'd have people asking, who's it going to be? Who is it? Because they got wind of the takeover. And I obviously couldn't say anything under the, NDA and everything else. But I just replied with, if I told you the name, you wouldn't believe me anyway. So it's kind of pointless saying anything anyway. So it was a strange one, shall I say? But again, during the meetings that we had with them online, because all that was done through kind of COVID times, they were kind of incredibly honest, incredibly open, with their answers and with their vision of what they were saying for the club. And in fairness, they've absolutely 100% delivered on everything that they said.
Delivered, yes, yeah.
They were going to do, and for that, you have to give them, the whole lot of credit. And I think, they said all along, we don't know that much about football, but we're going to bring in people who know what they're doing and to help the club grow and the business grow. Well, when you look at where we are now to where we were, it's kind of simply unbelievable, isn't it, really?
And even if the results hadn't worked out at the moment, what they've done off the pitch is what they said they were going to do: bring in involve the community, revitalize the town, bring in the interest. Was that? I presume you voted yes for the sale.
Absolutely.
Said no, didn't they? Why was that? You think they were afraid of losing the identity and stuff like that?
Maybe, potentially, perhaps the unknown, I guess, of what might be happening, and perhaps a bit of cynicism of maybe what's gone on in the past, and who are these two kind of actors? What do they know about football? Why are they coming in? Do we trust them? Because I think that was the biggest thing, wasn't it? Was trusting them. Having been through what we'd been through as supporters, kind of over the years, and how we managed to kind of get by. And I think that's where the at the time, all of us as supporters, and I know that the Wrexham Supporters Trust were kind of heading the club at that stage, and owners, but absolutely every supporter, whether you were a member of the trust or not, anybody who went through the gates, paid their 20 quid to watch us in them days, we all kept the club going, didn't we? No matter what we did, and without the things that without keeping it going, we wouldn't be kind of where we are now. And I was doing community lead and really passionate about what I was doing, and looking to bring in a program of events and the program of things. And we brought in a few things when I was part of the community lead, which I'm kind of proud of, that the club got a couple of awards here and there for things. So and that was kind of the springboard, I think. And I think that not so much the community work as such, but I think that the club being as close to the community as what it was probably helped a little bit, with the sale. And again, heads off to every single one who kept that club going is unbelievable. And how those crowds stayed up as much as they did through those non-league, some of them bleak non-league times, losing at home to Hayes and Yedding, and such like it. They were hard times, but we were still having 3,500 through the gate. And I can remember back to when we were close to the League One playoffs of that one season under Flinney, probably about 96-ish, 97-ish, maybe 95, 96, something like that. And we were still only getting 3,500 in them days. So the crowds have stayed up. People have felt a sense of community, and I think that's something that we can all be kind of proud of. And I think hopefully we're all reaping the rewards of that and enjoying watching our football team win a few games.
Yeah, and so how did it happen? So before you go, how did it happen so quickly? Because it hit the ground running. There's been no really finding out moments. There's been no period of where it took its time, did it? It happened so quickly. The results came instantly.
Yeah, it was quite incredible, really. That first season, obviously we had to get to the end of the one season. We just missed out on the playoffs, didn't we?
Yeah, the full season, finishing second, was still a great season.
Absolutely unbelievable, and I think we perhaps didn't quite have enough strength in depth in the squad. We come really good in February, March, and we did really, really well to get as close as what we did to Stockport. But I think that the depth of the squad, I think Parky, as we know, he likes to trust his players, and I think he played a lot of players for a lot of games, and I think we were tired when we come to that Grimsby game, and it was just unfortunate that we'd had a few injuries as well, and on the day Grimsby had the X factor in McAtee, didn't he? Who had a great game, and it knocked us out, but it probably wasn't a bad thing in a way, because the season after was a special season, to get 111 points, 116 goals.
That battle with Notts County.
It was incredible, and I think it's probably the reason why we got as many points as we did, because I think in a normal season, in a normal season, we'd have probably finished up winning the league, and we'd have slipped off with 100 points or something, which still wouldn't have been too bad, but it wouldn't have been that. I'd rather have had it that way, funnily enough. In some respects, but equally again, it's going to be a season that we talk about, and again, going back to Dragonchat slightly, just gives you so much material to talk about with those sort of games, and put a smile on people's faces. But it's been it was a very, very strange, unusual promotion season, and I think yourself. I mean, we've been going for years now, haven't we? Let's be honest. I think the club, 3 promotions. I think before that we'd only had 4 promotions, haven't we, in our history?
Was there? Was Dennis Smith?
Yeah, Dennis Smith.
So
we had we 62. I want to say 62-3. Was it also? Yeah, and then 77, 78.
Yeah.
92, 93, 2002, 2003.
Yes, and that was it.
That was it. So so it's quite unprecedented, isn't it? Really, and it's quite funny with
for any club. Obviously, no club has done it.
It's
clubs have
incredible.
Gone through the leagues have taken longer to do it, but 3 in a row.
Oh, it takes some. It's an unbelievable achievement, and as I said, is that young fans coming up, new fans for Wrexham, and even all the new fans are doing. They must be thinking, "Oh, this football's kind of easy. It's brilliant." And I just think and again with how Welsh football has gone in the last sort of 8 to 10 years. For new football supporters in for Wales and Wrexham fans, we've just had such a golden period that
great to get them here, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, it'd be wonderful. Once that new stand's built, and I think once the rest of the the stadium's built up, it's going to be a fantastic fortress for us.
Bellamy the right man, do you think? I think he's doing really well. I think he's the right character. I think he's got something about him. And it's carried on us that we've managed to evolve through certain changes and problems. These last 10 years, we've managed to evolve and stay competing.
Yeah, and I think when you we had one of the best players in the world, didn't we, with Gareth Bale, and when you kind of you lose that player out of your team, it's very, very hard. But I think full credit to the Welsh FA for the way they're producing the players, and the players. We look as though we've got a really good, strong squad now. We're very good. If we had a Gareth Bale in there now, we'd be qualifying for tournaments every time. But unfortunately, they only come around once in a lifetime, don't they? Yeah, you don't get it very often.
After Wrexham, would you like to see a few more in the squad? You've got to be on there on merit, haven't you? Well, you've got to be there on merit, but it'd be nice to get guys in the team.
Yeah, I think Ward's a really good signing. I know Arthur's done fantastically well for us. He's a brilliant young keeper. Callum Burton, fantastic keeper as well, to be fair. And we've got Danny Ward in there now. And I think if Ward finds his form and gets to back to how he is, how he can play, he's going to be one fantastic keeper for us without any shadow of a doubt. So yeah, we're really blessed in that position without any shadow of a doubt. Definitely.
So your thoughts on next year? Stay up?
Yeah, stay up and consolidate. I do think we may Portsmouth. I'd liken us to from last year. They went up. they struggled a little bit to start off with, but then once they found their feet, they were fine and finished kind of mid-table. If we have that sort of a season now, where we are, I think we will, and that's perfectly fine. But again, it's interesting to see the CEO talking about, you know, if we're in the playoffs by Christmas, then you watch. I don't doubt that, but again, it's you never know. I'd never rule anything out with Wrexham these days.
When you start seeing the prize, you start getting closer. You want it. We talk about this. We'd be happy just to stay in there. I think that's not being negative. The Premier League would be brilliant. The playoffs brilliant, but just to stay in the Championship, stay there for several years.
You look at the two teams that went up last season from the Championship, Leeds United, with, you know, all the Welsh connection in there, Ampadu, Roden, Dan James. You know, you look at, you know, our team. If you're going to compare player for player, you can't compare. I always say Phil Parkinson's sides are more about the sum of the side more than the individuals in it. You know, as a unit, we're absolutely fantastic. But you know, with those players, and Burnley with, you know, a defence which only conceded 14 goals or something stupid, wasn't it, in the season? You know, I mean, you know, for us to go up automatic, you've got to be doing something like that. I think that's
it's a bit beyond us at this stage. Stay there and grow and just refurbish and redevelop and develop and add to it, get stronger and stronger over a number of seasons, perhaps.
Yeah,
so, like,
and I think
where we are is fantastic.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I think, you know, for us, home form is going to be the key for next season. You know, we get our home form right, it gives us a great platform to stay up. As first and foremost, that's the first objective for me. But you never know if the home form is as good as what it has been for the last 3 years. Then you never know, you might be able to flirt a little bit towards the playoffs, and who knows.
But I say 60 points should be well enough. I think 55 should be enough. We're going to lose at least over 10 games, I think. Don't worry. There's room to lose games and be safe.
Yes.
Yeah. I think this squad as it is can stay up.
Yeah, I do too. I don't.
It might be nervous at times, but we can stay up.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine. But I think if we add a little bit more to it, then we'll definitely stay up. And you never know if the wind's in the right direction and everything else goes with us. We've got momentum. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows where it can take
momentum. It's unstoppable at the moment.
Absolutely. It's like a steamroller which keeps rolling.
Okay, Steve Lloyd from Dragonchat, thank you very much. Keep up the good work, and I hope Dragonchat grows and becomes stronger and better and bigger, and you achieve everything you'd like to with it. Cheers, Steve. Thank you very much for this, and come back. We'll do it again.
Thank you, Carl.